So boys, we caught 29 pounds on the new CHATTERBAIT Evo Tungsten. If you guys missed that video, it was absolutely sick. We tested that thing out. It passed with flying colors, but there's sort of a question whether you actually need it or not. But you gotta go back to that video to check it out, dude. It's a very cool bait and has this really cool function if you actually need that for the price point. But what we're gonna do in this video is I've kind of found that I've been throwing this guy when I'm throwing a chatterbait almost like 80% of the time. This is the CHATTERBAIT Mini Max. You guys have seen me do a lot of videos on this thing. I absolutely love it. And it fits into this concept of like power finesse that I've been playing around with, where you're fishing baits fast, you're fishing them hard, you're making a lot of casts, throwing it on 17-pound fluorocarbon, but you're downsizing the bait. You're still power fishing, but you're fishing a smaller, more finesse kind of presentation. And one thing I noticed is there's a million videos on CHATTERBAIT trailers, right? Like the Komodo, that Gary Yamamoto. There's all kinds of awesome CHATTERBAIT trailers and CHATTERBAIT trailer videos, but I don't think somebody has really gone like super in depth into CHATTERBAIT mini trailers. And there's a lot of sneaky ones you can put on there. So in this video, we're gonna run through some of my top CHATTERBAIT mini trailer picks and why they work and why they make the bait do some super kind of cool and unique hunting things. So hit that like and subscribe button. Let's get after it. So I got a lot of these guys on standby, dude. And actually, if you're looking for a bag to store your chatterbaits, dude, this is the best Mafia Bud bag. It is a little bit pricey, but it's absolutely sick, dude. It has all these little slots. You can drop them in each individual slot, keeps them nice, keeps the skirts from rotting. And then I actually like mark them with what size and weight they are, dude. It just keeps me organized, but I got a bunch on standby. And the biggest key with this thing is the hook size, right? So you can see it's kind of like a short shank. I would say it's like a 2/0 or a 3/0, depending on how you size the hook. So really when it comes to trailers, you need to find something that doesn't overpower the bait. You want it to have that sort of hunting action. We've talked about it with a regular chatterbait. I'm a strong believer in the trailer accents the bait. It adds to the bait and it takes action from the bait and reacts to that versus actually like creating action. So I'm not a huge fan of a bunch of like kicking appendages and things along those lines on my chatterbaits. I want it to be pretty straight, pretty streamlined, and it allows that bait to hunt and create different kind of rolls, cuts, and just shakes. It makes that tail just shake, you know, because when that blade's going, it's causing that bait to kind of rock back and forth like that. And if you have the right kind of trailer, it's just flicking that tail just like a minnow. So my top two, the top primary picks, and they're price point conscious, they're fairly affordable, and they're pretty durable. Number one, it is the Gambler Komodo Jr. So this is a downsized version of the full-size Komodo, which is the standard Gambler trailer. And what's cool about this guy is it has that oval-esque profile, has a tail with those little appendages on it, and what actually happens with this thing is it actually swims. So it uses that action from the chatterbait, and that tail actually swims just like a fish. Has a little more oval-esque profile, so it provides some extra bulk so you can bomb that chatterbait, and it fits right on. You know, it's perfect size for the hook. The hook comes out right through the top right there. I think I got one rigged up right here I can show you. And you get this kind of cool mini little fish presentation, and you can see that that tail is very free floating, so it allows that bait to wave. Second favorite, and actually it's pretty damn close to the Komodo Jr., and that is the Hog Farmer, the Spunk Shad, dude. But the smaller version, this is the 3.5 inch. This thing is killer. When I kind of discovered CHATTERBAIT Mini Maxes, this was the deal. This one's super cool because it provides you some bulk to kind of get a good keeper kind of embedding on that trailer, so it holds really well. And what I love doing with this guy is burning it, dude. Absolutely burning it, because that slender profile going and tapering down to that little tail causes some crazy hunting action with that chatterbait. So you can just burn it real fast, stop, burn it real fast, and what happens is this chatterbait will run straight and then it'll dart out and cut back. My buddy Jacob Wall always talks about that hunting action with the chatterbait, and with that Spunk Shad you really get that darting random cutout, and that's really what causes bites, dude. Sometimes they want that even retrieve, especially when the water's a little colder, but sometimes when they're a little more active, especially that sort of like post-spawn or early summer kind of bite, they want that thing like darting around, and you want to fish it a little bit faster, and that's when this thing just really shows off. Now, if you don't want to go like Spunk Shad level and you got some stuff laying around, you can never go wrong with just a mini Fluke. It's the same exact concept. The one part I don't like about, or there's actually two parts I don't like about the Mini Fluke. One is the body has that little kind of sleeve in it that you'd usually slide your hook through, right? If you want to fish it, you put it on like a little 1/0 or a 2/0 kind of Texas rig hook, O'Shaughnessy hook, and that hook embeds in that slot. Well, when it comes to the chatterbait, you want something for that keeper to grab, and there's not very much meat on that nose. So sometimes, and oftentimes, the hook actually rips out of that slot and causes the bait to rip, and you don't get much grab from the keeper. The other thing is the tail. I want straight tails for the most part, or more sort of pointed, I guess it'd be like a straight tail or a single tail on these guys instead of that Fluke fork tail. I'm gonna show you some examples that are sort of different than that, but overall, I like something that's a little more streamlined, and the body on this is a little too wide at the butt. But if you got them laying around, it's a perfect fit for this guy. Now, what's really cool is a lot of you guys might not be fans of forward-facing sonar, but what's happened with forward-facing sonar is we've had all these minnow baits come out, right? There's like 4,500,000.2 little minnow dangle baits that guys are using on jig heads and things along those lines. What's super cool is a lot of these baits have cross applications for trailers, and they're like the perfect trailer for what I'm looking for this CHATTERBAIT Mini Max. And so at the same time, when we're talking about zoom, this guy has been super cool. So this is the Zoom Winged Fluke. It's a 100% minnow bait. It's much like that Fluke that I just showed you, but what's really cool with this is it has the wings. You still run into the slight problem because it has that separation in the middle, but there's a little more meat on the nose because it was made for that jig head. The tail is thinner, so it has more of a tapered tail. Even though it has the fork, it's a much smaller, you can see it kind of like jiggles very easily. It's a much smaller tail, and what I've found is those wings on the side of the bait actually cause that chatterbait to kind of rock around and create like this darting motion. Like when you pop it, when you rip it, it causes it to dart around because those wings are actually catching water and creating resistance and causing that chatterbait to roll in different kind of unique ways. So a lot of these minnow baits sort of have like crossover function as some real cool chatterbait trailers. The other one that's really cool that I enjoy is this guy right here. This is a Dual Realis. It's a pintail shad, and you're gonna say right off the bat, bro, that looks like a fluky dookie, and it does. But it's a little bit different. And one thing that's super important is not getting something that's too bulky on these little chatterbait minis. And what's unique about this guy is it's a much thinner minnow than your Fluke style kind of bait. It has a much thinner profile and a little bit taller profile. There's a little more meat too. It still has that fork in the middle, but it's less deep than on a Fluke, and there's more meat on the head. Plus, it has this guy. And that's what I love. You can see it already doing it, dude. It has that straight pin tail, just like the name says. And bro, this thing absolutely dances. So if you got like little minnows around and you're trying to fish a chatterbait and they're not biting, and you go down to that CHATTERBAIT Mini and you're looking to mimic just like those little glass minnows, those little kind of scoot around, maybe fry or something like that, this guy just absolutely dances on the back of that thing. Another one that's kind of cool too, and it's all the same concept. Basically, all these minnow baits have crossover functions for some of these smaller, even like a smaller spinnerbait trailer. They have crossover functions for that, and that is this guy, the NetBait Hextech. This is specifically the Eco Shad. It's their straight tail version. They also have a boot tail that almost looks like a Kitech, but this guy just is a small chunk basically with a straight tail. This one is a little smaller than the rest. I think it's like 2.5 inches, 3 inches, but it has that meaty kind of head to it. It has this cool hexy kind of finish. There's like little deep ribs in there. It's very soft plastic, so it has a lot of kind of malleability as that chatterbait's kind of shaking and that blade's going, so it's going to kind of wiggle and roll quite a bit. But then it has this super cool tail. So the tail, and this can be a downside, but it can also be a benefit. It has those segments allowing the tail more sort of flex and function. So bro, this straight tail absolutely freaking dances, bro. And this is one of like the smaller profile baits that I'll use, but it absolutely dances around, dude, when that chatterbait is getting burned in that, because it has such a wide range of motion and such flexibility because of those segments. At the same time though, it also allows it to get bit off by like gar, if you got pike or something like that. It can be a problem because they'll nip it off and they'll rip that tail off, but there's also bait fuel built into it. So I'm not big into the bait fuel on reaction style baits. It's more of like a dangle and a worm thing, but if I can get some bait fuel in it, I get some bait fuel in it. But that one's a super cool one if you're looking to downsize. And the key overall being is basically I have all these freaking minnow baits, dude. All kinds of crazy JDM stuff, like dual realis stuff. I got like little Kitech flukes like that you guys have seen me throw. There's a ton of different options for these guys. And basically any minnow bait that you actually like, that has some cool finish, that has a nice slender profile, that has either like a very tapered body or a 100% straight tail, you can use these on the back of your CHATTERBAIT Mini Max and implement them, and they absolutely kill it. So the last one that I'm gonna show you is kind of unique. And this one is sort of something I've been playing around with when the brim are up. So what I've been doing is actually taking my CHATTERBAIT Mini and I've been taking a Ned bait. So this is a Gambler Power Ned right here. It's kind of a, you know, your standard sort of stick bait, but much shorter. I've been actually taking my scissors and cutting this thing down to about 2 inches or so. And basically the tail has that thin little taper on it, just like that. And I've been putting that on the back of like my green pumpkin, my darker colored chatterbaits. And what it's doing is it's providing a little more bulk, but it shivers, I guess is the best way to put it. Different plastics behave in different ways, right? So this one kind of just shivers. And what's nice too is because it's a stick bait, I don't know if you guys know this trick, but like on hair jigs for guys fishing smallmouth, those little 1/8 ounce hair jigs, they'll put a little piece of a stick bait on to add weight to the hair jig so they can cast it on a spinning rod. Well, the stick bait kind of presentation does the same thing on that CHATTERBAIT Mini. So you put this thing on the back and it bulks it up so you can make these super duper bomb casts. And then the other thing that it does is it floats it up a little bit. It causes it to fall a little bit slower. Because one of the interesting aspects, it's not a downside, but one of the interesting aspects to this CHATTERBAIT Mini is because it has a smaller blade, but it still has the same weighting. So they come in a 1/4 ounce, 3/8, half. But basically the 1/2 ounce is more equivalent to either a 5/8 or a 3/4 ounce like standard chatterbait, because there's not much restriction in how it falls. It falls pretty quickly. And then the 3/8 is more equivalent to say a 1/2 ounce standard chatterbait. And so when you put those bulkier trailers on that bait, you don't want to over bulk it, but when you put a little bit bulkier trailer on the back of that CHATTERBAIT Mini, it actually causes it to fall a little bit slower, and you can control that fall. So it's one way to kind of manipulate the action and sort of modify it so that you're accommodating that faster fall, but you can still use like that 1/2 ounce chatterbait, you know, instead of going down to the 3/8, or the 3/8 instead of going down to the 1/4. Any of those slender profile, kind of like straight or tapered tail baits can all act as perfect trailers for this CHATTERBAIT Mini, and they all complement the action, dude. They're all kind of shaking and using that sort of that hunting kind of like vibrating, rolling action, and using that to create that natural swimming tail action. Absolutely killer bait, especially, dude, if you're on a lake that's pressured or clear and you're just not getting as many bites on the chatter donker as you used to, and you want to do the same thing, but you want to switch it up a little bit. It all falls under that power finesse sort of umbrella, dude. But I'll put links to everything down in the description box for you guys to check out if you want to play around with it. If you haven't, play with that CHATTERBAIT Mini Max. I probably shouldn't be saying that, but it's killer, dude. Like, I've caught so many bigs on it on Gunnersville, down here in Florida, and for some reason, they still just haven't seen it that much, dude. It fishes great. You have to fish it on a little lighter tackle, but dude, it's actually kind of cool too. It goes through wood really well. It has some unique aspects to it that you need to explore, and I'm sure we're gonna do a more in-depth video on fishing it once I get back to Alabama. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Once again, thank you for the 100K. I can't believe we hit it, but we did. And I'll give Bog a pat for you. Later, my homies.